On today's show, Real Recovery Podcast, episode number 38, we welcome Solara Salazar from Cielo Treatment Center. Solara shares her powerful journey, detailing her path from a challenging upbringing to finding recovery and resilience. We discuss her impactful work with young adults, providing hope and guidance, and explore the unique approaches at Cielo that support meaningful transformation. Solara's insights offer a fresh perspective on overcoming addiction, building compassionate spaces, and fostering a community-focused recovery journey.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Julie, your co-host, on this journey of healing and transformation. Together with my co-host, Peter, we dive into the heart of recovery, sharing stories that resonate with courage and inspiration.
That's right, Julie. Each episode is a new chapter in this vast narrative of recovery, and we're honored to bring them to you. But keep in mind, the perspectives you'll hear are for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views of the podcast or our partners.
Indeed, while these conversations can be a powerful part of your recovery toolkit, they are not substitute for professional medical advice. We encourage you to seek guidance from your healthcare provider for any treatment-related decisions.
And if you're facing an immediate crisis, or if you just need to talk to someone who understands, don't hesitate to call the Recovery Crisis Line at 503-223-85. The number is also on our website. Help is available 24/7.
Now let's begin our episode
of recovery, real recovery.
You're joining us on the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Peter here
This
with
is
Julie. And to have you here. I'm so glad you're here and can't wait to hear your story and also about your facility and what you do there, because I know very little at this point. So this is my education. I'm a
Well, and I've actually, not just through Izzy, through a couple people, have heard that sometimes you work miracles and get people in when no one else can. I think he had one person he was really worried about and you helped him. So kudos, Izzy. But I'm so glad to hear your story. And there's no wrong or right on the podcast. You can swear, you can do whatever. It's just a casual
not like the old
conversation.
days with the FCC guidelines. And also, we don't have time limits unless you do. So
we shoot for an hour, give or take, whatever. And then
we shoot for an hour and a half.
And then
we've
we're happy
edited.
to be back in Studio H, which is Peter's humble abode, because Go the Distance run was challenging. And then we were at...
We saw you at Go to the Distance.
Yes.
That was the last time.
Yep.
How was that? How
That
did you enjoy
so
it?
Fun.
Now, were you a participant in...
No, but I dressed in running clothes, so it looked like
You did.
I
You looked like-
participated. I looked very
I love
sporty. And yeah, for any bystander, if they looked at me, they'd be like, "Ooh, she's got."
Yeah.
Guess what?
I love it.
I ran like the 40-yard dash when Roger started handing out medals.
Yeah, it was
No.
pictures of
I have an
Julie
extra
crossing
one.
the line.
Oh,
Little do
yes.
people know
Yeah.
she just ran from that one.
An extra medal.
Oh my God, that would
They're
be
really
amazing.
cool. Mhm.
No one will ever know.
No, there's pictures. There's pictures of me running across the finish line. So receipts.
You have proof.
Yeah. We worked plenty hard just doing the interviews and being there. So I figure it worked itself out either way. You run it
Yes.
or you participate in other ways, right?
Yes,
It's
cheerleader right here.
Amen.
Exactly.
I love that. To all this.
Oh boy.
What's the
Let's see.
story?
What's the story? Well, I am a person in long-term recovery, and I know that you don't have to be in recovery to work in this field and want to help people. I know a lot of just truly amazing folks that do really incredible work in the recovery field, the treatment industry, sober housing. But it's definitely a huge part of my story, and you led me here today. So
Peter and I as well.
One of the things that I really appreciate is the peer mentor mindset, that we've lived it, that lived experience. It seems to be really helpful for a lot of people to connect with someone that they can relate to on all those different levels. So I think those of us who have a recovery story are a bonus.
And I think
yeah, I really do believe that it gives me that level of compassion and understanding. And then I really try to be an inspiration too. And I work with a lot of primarily young adults and have conversations with these kids who really just believe that they're never going to amount to anything, that failure is their life path. They've really just been sold this bill of goods that they're worthless or unlovable and that they have no future. And then when I share a little bit about my story and all that I've accomplished, it's really fun to feel like I'm an inspiration on some level, that if I can do it,
Definitely.
trust me, if I can do it.
Darkest days, the depths that they came from, the broken backgrounds, whatever it may be. And yet here they are out in society, positive influence, whether they're running, some of them are running nonprofits. It's like, talk about inspiration.
That's like GTD. I've known Izzy since before GTD existed. And that grow has been the biggest
Pulling people from within. Yeah. Which is that's all that works pretty much in his facility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Izzy.
Yeah.
Our favorite
I was going to say
people.
sometimes, no, just kidding. But since he's my husband, I can say that. I have to keep him.
So where does your experience be?
Funny whenever I go to outside support groups or sometimes even just go to public speaking events, I love hearing people's origin stories, right? Like a superhero, like what's the backstory? So I always get a little excited when I get to share mine because I love hearing other people's. So I had a very unusual upbringing. I was raised in Mendocino County in Northern California in the Emerald Triangle. So I was a little hippie kid, hundreds and hundreds of miles out in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Oh, wow.
On an illegal pot farm. A bunch of naked hippies and pot plants everywhere. And when it was hot out, nobody was wearing clothes. It was just a comfort level thing. And which I'll tell you, when you're like in middle school and high school and you have to bring in like pictures. Yeah, there was a slideshow, right? In middle school, they're like, bring in baby pictures. And I'm like, not only am I naked, in every picture, my mom's naked. There's random naked people, weed leaves everywhere. So yeah, I didn't have the cute little portrait pictures that other people have in our family photo album. So it was very different, I hear, from other people's backgrounds. But I will say that it was also super magical. I grew up out in the redwoods. I grew up climbing trees and building forts and riding horses. And I just had like deep love and appreciation for nature and the wilderness. And that was really a value that was instilled in our family, was that we are protectors of the earth and we really need to care for the planet. Yes. But I also think that with stories, right, there's no black or white. Sometimes it's not even gray. It's like our lives are very nuanced. And so while I had this very magical, ethereal, backwoods kind of wild upbringing, I also lived in a home where I didn't feel safe. I lived in a home where never knew what kind of mood my, stepdad who raised me would be in. And he was very abusive. I remember he used to like to make fun of me in front of other people. He always had these big groups of friends. And looking back, I was like, man, he was just this very narcissistic, unpleasant man. But I didn't realize that as a kid. And so as a kid, he'd trot me out and then ridicule me and grin and smile and be sarcastic. And I remember just standing there with like my cheeks on fire. And those are just a few memories. But he was very cruel. And so from the time I was a little kid, I figured out, though, that if I could make him laugh or if I could get him in a good mood, there was certain things I could do to control the situation. And so as a little kid, I became this chameleon where I was really good at reading the room, at reading my mom's mood, his mood. I learned how to be funny, how to be outgoing, how to be silly, how to be dramatic. I do these little plays and these little acting things. And so a really horrendous way to live actually served me later on. My ability to read rooms, my ability to be funny and connect with people and all these different
The chameleon strikes with me, because for me it was the same type of thing, but I looked at it as masks. I wore different masks to fit into any situation.
Yes.
And by doing that, I lost myself.
I think when you say reading the room as well, it took me a minute when I was younger to my mom would wake up and not remember she grounded me. And I'd be staying in the house and she's like, and yeah, but it took me a minute. And then I also learned when she had drank where she's the party, and then when it switched and she became really mean. And it takes time to read the room, but I think as you do, you learn to adapt too.
I really relate with what you just said. I think that was a common theme as well, right? With these extreme moods that my parental figures would go through. And looking back, I think my mom's extreme moods where she was married to this person that it was just really miserable. I think she had some mental health stuff that this is the 80s. They didn't have all the things they have now and all the support.
Marijuana wasn't legal, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I do remember those extreme mood swings and never knowing what you're going to walk into, right? Like never knowing. And just, I think I tried really hard to get acceptance and love from my parents and my stepdad. And then there was some point where I figured out that wasn't going to happen. And I don't remember what day that was, or that's not like a specific memory, but something flipped where all of a sudden I was like, oh, like no amount of goodness. I was a straight A student. I started high school at the age of 12. I tried so hard to be such a good kid that somehow I could get love. And then when I figured out that wasn't going to happen, I just went the polar opposite.
We sound so similar. I was like, let me give you back what you gave to me. And not on purpose, but that is exactly what happened. I went down to Portland State at 17, and a 17-year-old from a Catholic school should never be allowed at Portland State by herself.
So I started drinking a lot around probably 12 years old. And then I actually left home at the age of 13.
Wow.
I remember doing this thing where I told my stepdad, I was like, I'm leaving, I'm out of here, thinking that they're going to tell me, no, you can't do that. You're 13. And no, he got me this little 12-foot trailer. Or no, we already had it. That's right. It was already in our backyard. He's like, you can have the trailer. And I had to find somewhere to put it. And there was this like junkyard on one side of town, and this guy that owned a glass blowing workshop, but it was literally in a junkyard. And so my stepdad moved it there, and I paid this guy $100 a month rent.
Wow.
I was working
At 13?
At 13. So I moved out at 13 years old. And what I can tell you is that when you are a 13-year-old girl living on your own, there are a lot of dangers and things that I was just not prepared for. I don't think I realized how scary the world can be for a young girl.
Same for me, but I imagine at 13.
Were you working? How did you come up with the $100?
Yeah,
That's what I'm like. At 13,
how did you
I had
stay
nothing.
out of school?
Was
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, is I lied to the school, told them I was still living with my parents. I was so good at forging my mom's name.
Me too.
That my signature is still her signature. One time she saw me sign my name. She goes, "Oh, that's so funny, Solara." As adults, she goes, "That's so funny. Our signatures are almost identical." I didn't want to be like, "Yeah, I never could sign your name so many times growing up." I just decided to use
to write the note freshman year, and so I wrote the note so it was my signature that was on file. It's hysterical.
Wow. Yeah, and then I worked as I guess not a bus boy. What is it, a bus girl? What is that?
Bus person?
Busser?
Bus person.
A bus
A busser?
person. Yes, I bussed tables at a local little seafood restaurant where we worked. And that was after school. I'd get home at sometimes 1,
so you
2
still
in the
went
morning.
to school?
For a while, for a little bit. I discovered meth.
Oh, my God.
So then I was in my trailer.
I do know.
Using meth, partying, drinking. School pretty quickly became low on my priority list.
Yeah.
Dropped out my freshman year. Or no, sophomore year. Sorry, beginning of my sophomore year. And you know how some people talk about addiction as a progressive disease? They're like, oh, yeah, I started, and then 5 years later, I was full blown. No, I did meth for the very first time And actually, it looked really similar to this. You guys can't see where I am right now, but there's like microphones everywhere and IT equipment. And I used to hang out in this recording studio at night because I was scared of the dark in my little trailer because I was a little kid. And so these musicians would stay up. These musicians would stay up recording, and they'd let me like sleep in the corner sometimes. And one night, one of the musicians, he's like, "Oh, here, come in the bathroom." And there's these little lines on the back of the toilet. And I was like, "No, I don't do that. I'm not interested." And he goes, "It's better you do it here with safe people because the way your life is headed, trust me, it's just better you do it with us."
Nice guy.
Yeah, great. And so I did a line, but man, it was like all of a sudden I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't scared of the dark.
Courage.
I wasn't scared of anything. I felt loved. I felt like I belonged. It was like every little piece of what I'd been searching for or what I was afraid of was instantly cured.
Right.
Miraculous, right?
Yeah.
To the point where the very next morning, instead of feeling all crappy and being like, "Oh, I don't feel good, I should go to sleep." Oh, no, the next morning I was like asking around town. I'm like, "Hey, so where does one acquire more of this miracle substance?" And man, I so quickly just became massively addicted. I became a daily user from day one. And I was able to identify that I was an addict probably 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yeah. But you pulled yourself away from all that horribleness. Yeah, I can see where the attraction.
Right? That I didn't remember the bad stuff. It wasn't until years and years later that it didn't come up. And just like you, I think when I snorted, not necessarily, because I'd go dancing at the gay club and dance all night with the guys. And then I was still in college and I would sleep. And then when I was too tired and my nose hurt, then I used IV Wise. And that's when I felt like, just let me run the world. And it gave me instant courage too. And if you mess with me, I would kick your ass for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that if I could have, I don't want to call them normal because I don't really think anybody is normal, and that's a good thing. We're all unique and unusual and complicated. But if I could have anybody understand anything about addiction that has never been addicted to substance, it's this idea that drugs aren't all bad, right? If they were all bad, none of us would have gotten addicted to them in the first place. They really served a purpose.
Yeah.
I needed to not feel scared. I needed to feel safe. Like these were all really legitimate needs that I had as a young kid, and nothing else was meeting them.
I never
Exactly.
looked at it that way.
Yeah, they definitely did the
And 13-year-old on meth, the queen of the world,
Your dad gave you a trailer.
and you're cruising along, and then there has to be that point.
Oh, yeah. First started using, I found a guy I could buy it from, but I didn't really know any other people that were really using it. Like the musicians that I had first used it with, they would do it like once a month when they were recording music. They weren't
They
daily.
were recreational
Yeah, they were a
users.
little recreational. And so I was just using it and going to work and by myself, and I wasn't really involved in we'll call it the, which anybody who's been in the meth community knows that, oh boy, that is a whole nother world right there.
Yeah, I couldn't handle
Was
it.
it? We had a guest on, the guitarist from 4D. Her name's escaping me.
Elton.
Elton,
I love
yes,
Elton. Yes.
And she gave us a glimpse of that meth community, the
Yes.
storage units, and
Elton is so
nowhere to go to the bathroom. Oh, there's a bucket, but who's going to empty it? Oh no! It was just
Yes.
it was like all this that she described in her story, and I'm just like, wow, that's a community.
Well, and I think we share all different sorts of recovery, AA, Overeaters Anonymous, just all different sorts, because we just want you to know you can recover. And the meth community can be overwhelming. Like
Yes.
the drunk community, I think you're just drunk, and the DUI or you're driving drunk. But the meth community, I think, thinks differently. I don't even know how to explain it, but it can be.
It feels to me like you are you're more vulnerable in that you will do anything to get to that high. It grabs you and you don't care about anything to do. Like Elton was saying, she was dirty, hadn't changed her clothes in weeks or months, matted hair. I didn't have a care in the world about that. Living in a storage, as long as I could get my fix.
Yes. And it was such a culture shock for me when I did start meeting these folks. And when I was meeting them,
Me too.
like I said, these were not the once a month musicians, the people holding down a job and doing a little partying. I very quickly fell in with a highly criminal crowd. People that were cooking meth, bikers, gypsy jokers, and then just some random backwoods meth addicts that were these extreme libertarian barrels of explosives buried in their backyard, guns everywhere. And we're just out committing all these crimes. And I remember at first just being like, whoa, as weird as my upbringing was, we didn't have values. Like, you don't steal, you don't put a gun to somebody's head and threaten them. You don't just randomly shoot at each other because you're having an argument. From being this hippie kid to this really intense, very insane, highly criminal world, very violent world was a real culture shock. And I didn't tell anybody how old I was either. I knew, right? That was not going to fly, having me be 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
So I lied. I told everybody I was 20. 18 is not believable, right? Because at 18, they're like, is she lying?
Is she
18?
16?
I like, you go big or go home, right? 20, that means like you can't go to the bar, right? But you're way past that.
But you're legal.
Yeah, you're legal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I looked a little older,
justification.
so it worked. And nobody really would think that there'd be some 14-year-old kid running around in these circles. So, and chameleon.
Being on your own since 13, you got real quick.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
When you don't know any better, it's an education within itself. It really is.
Yeah.
I couldn't hang out with the people you hung out with. It was too much for me. So I just decided to be an escort and work the escort service instead because I didn't like the gypsy jokers. They scared me for real. And I knew somebody who had been kidnapped by one. And
Yeah, I was locked in an attic above a meth cook garage in Sonoma, California by the gypsy jokers. 3 days, no water, peeing in the corner, fumes coming up. Thought I was gonna die then. There's so many times that I was pretty sure I was gonna die, and scenarios I'd be in where I just remember thinking like, how did I get here? Like, what is happening? Yeah, and I have to tell this one story because it's a little funny too. So instead of being so dark, we'll go a little lighthearted.
There we
go. So this will show you the caliber of human beings I was hanging out with. Oklahoma City bombing. Anybody, what year was that? I don't even remember. It was the 90s.
Yes, in the 90s.
Yeah, so it was a big deal. Even where I was living, everybody heard of this Oklahoma City bombing in the news, the papers, all that stuff. One of my dear friends, the guy with the explosives buried in his backyard, and every one of his family members was on America's Most Wanted for running guns back and forth from Mexico, just all kinds of stuff, right? Like massive drug dealing. Apparently, he was not a fan of the government, and he would stay up high on meth, and he'd send weird, threatening letters about blowing up buildings and doing stuff. And so apparently, they thought he might be the Oklahoma City bomber. So one night, we are all in this trailer on his property, and everybody's doing drugs and all those things. And this one guy, Robbie, kept saying, "Oh, there's somebody in the tree. I see somebody in the tree." And we're like, "Oh, God, you need to
Quit tweaking.
Quit tweaking.
Yeah.
You need to get some sleep." And man, he wouldn't shut up, but he kept going out there. And so I ended up leaving because I'm like, this is a bummer, right? I don't really want to hang out with this guy that keeps pointing at the trees all
paranoid.
night.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I go up the little path, I go onto the road, I leave. Apparently, like less than 20 minutes after I leave, all these people come belaying out of the trees, SWAT teams, They raided his property because they thought that he was the Oklahoma City bomber. So I missed the raid, finding the original Oklahoma City bomber.
Oh my
He
gosh.
wasn't. It wasn't him. But
Yeah.
those are the folks that I was hanging out with, were people that could be mistaken for somebody that blows up buildings full.
I can't. And then talk about what we sometimes call God shots, but the fact that you got out of there before that happened. I have so many near misses in my story too.
Yeah.
Just
Not fair. Just saying not fair, because I went to get gas on 58th and Gleason before you get on the freeway, and the DA did swarm my car, did get me, detain me, and I had gone by this car, and I was like, please don't let that be the police. And he was reading a paper, and as soon as I drove by, he folded up his paper and he pulled out behind me, and I was like, I never got those lucky shots like that originally. I do now.
Although sometimes I think it's luckier when you get caught, because that's an intervention, right? On some level,
That's
right?
true.
That's like pumping the brakes. You know,
I
it's
think
the
that now.
universe. Yeah,
I
universe
think
saying,
that
stop.
If I didn't, I'd be dead. I was so ashamed of it, but now I'm just like, thank God I'm out.
near miss enough to prompt you to change your
That's hilarious.
I was gonna
love
say,
that
until
for
you
you,
get
that
caught
you
or
think
in trouble,
that.
that doesn't happen
Oh
usually.
man, no. And I had so many near misses where, like I would do a burglary or a break in, and my prints weren't found, but the other guys were, and he had to do time. And I had just so many. We'll call it luck, guardian angel, what have you.
Yeah.
But what everybody knows in the recovery community, in the meth community, is that luck always runs at some point. And here's the thing too, is I did try to get clean like different times. Like there were times where I would just, I'd be with some guy that had beaten me within an inch of my life, and I'm, covered in blood, and I'm just like, I just need to get out of here. I need help. And maybe I'd clean up for a couple days and sleep it off, and then I'd just go right back to it. Or I'd move. I moved to a new city so many times, I just hitchhike. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start over.
The geographical
but I
didn't
would
work.
start over like with a backpack, and I hitchhiked, and I'm like sleeping under a bridge. It's like not a really great success path there. It's just not super good. And through all that traveling and all that stuff, I had a kid. So I had a little girl, which I just white knuckling it, stayed clean through the majority of my pregnancy. Ooh, yeah, like living in a house where they were cooking meth. So whenever they would cook a batch, I would take the dog for a walk. I have to wait till all the fumes cleared out, and
Wow.
just it was
Mine was a little more drastic. The doctor said either you terminate your pregnancy or get off the drugs. And I came back and I was 35 pounds heavier. And he said, oh my God, you look so good. I can tell your decision. And I just figured if I couldn't get clean for the baby, I shouldn't have the baby. Yeah. And my daughter, luckily, born drug free.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. It's amazing, like, how you can have that clarity for someone else, but not for yourself.
Yes.
When it's just me, all right, I can.
Yeah. So I ended up with a baby. Was clean for a little bit till she was probably 3 or 4 months old, and then but I'm still hanging out. I'm hanging out with people that are still using. I'm still in that environment, and so of course I went back to it, and it was just horrible. And the things that I put my daughter through at a really young age, the things that those are images that will haunt me the rest of my life, that I can't ever take back, right? Like I can't ever go back in time and have her have a happy little baby.
I don't think we can take anything back like that, but I do think we can set the right example. I'm just lucky my daughter doesn't remember me being gone to prison. I've told her. But I think coming out and not using and setting the right foundation is probably the biggest blessing I've ever had, because she hasn't had to see me use or whatnot. She's our biggest fan. And that's crazy, because do it. That's all you can do. One day at a time, put one foot in front of each other. And I'm sure you're.
Oh, yeah, she's 27 and she has such better boundaries than I had. Like her life goals, and she's in recovery. Yeah, she's okay. So yeah, you're a young mom. Yeah, she's phenomenal. I'm so inspired by her every day.
Thanks
But
for
yeah,
saying I was a
she's-
young mom, because I wasn't.
Oh, you're drinking that young looking Kool-Aid over
I
there.
am, because 28.
Shut your mouth.
Promise.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't trust you now. I'm gonna turn around.
I was a
guy on the
late
couch.
bloomer.
No.
Don't let the chubby face fool you. But no, but I do understand. And my daughter she's never done a narcotic. I'm very grateful. And her father died of overdose.
Oh, that's so hard.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is he was sober from 3 to 10. So she got so much good time with him. And we were not romantically involved. So she got really good time because we were friends. So she has good memories. So I'm really glad. And he didn't come around when he was using. So we're really situation. But I think for some crazy reason that set the precedent of not doing meth and heroin and stuff like that. When she got into treatment, it was just as bad, but drinking and smoking weed.
I think it's that little genetic piece too.
Absolutely.
My biological dad was an addict, alcoholic, and I really just believe that, man, that stuff was running through my veins, just waiting to pop out in one form or another. And yeah, we see that. Yes. Yeah. 100%. But like you said, getting to be that role model, and even though you can't go back in time and make those changes, the fact is I did make those changes. I was encouraged to make them.
Oh, okay. So tell us how that.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, got to get your encouragement.
Robbed a pharmacy along with I mostly did that. I probably should have stuck to that. I had a lot better luck with breaking into businesses and stealing things.
Pharmacy.
Yeah. So through my meth journey, I transitioned to pain pills. So I'd gotten clean for a little while. I actually, believe it or not, I worked as a martial arts instructor. I got really into martial arts, and I'd moved to a new city and actually managed to get clean for a little bit. But I didn't know about recovery. I got myself a therapist, but I was still drinking on the weekends and smoking a little weed, which is funny because I didn't even like weed. I just was hanging out with people that did it, and I wanted to be cool. I know that sounds so dumb, but this is trying to fit in with this new
love
group.
weed.
Oh,
I think it got me off the meth.
man,
Yeah.
I guess it did do that little harm reduction. But then I was getting all this dental work done, and oh boy, pain pills came into the picture. And once again, it's like I so quickly went from I'm going to take a Vicodin because my tooth hurts to what's fentanyl?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lady with cancer that lives an hour away with these fentanyl patches. This is great. So yeah, so quickly I just hit this whole new bottom with opiates. And long story long, I ended up being super dope sick. I couldn't find anything. I had stolen from a pretty scary drug dealer and had to leave town because he was looking for me. And so my brother came, paid this guy off with weed, and took me out of town. And I was at his house, and I left my brother's house because I was so sad. Went to a friend's house. And here's the funny thing, though, is that I didn't use a real gun. It was a pellet gun thing.
pellet
Yeah,
gun?
like with the little
the
tip
good
painted.
thing.
No, it doesn't matter. Turns out they don't.
really?
Oh yeah, no, they don't care.
I'm like,
So-
gun charges are
no,
more time.
no.
Yeah.
If anybody out there is curious, maybe if I just go out and do an armed robbery with not a real gun. No, I don't recommend it. Do not recommend. Definitely still a raging felony, very frowned upon, it
And
turns
did
out.
you still have the on it when
No,
you were
like I took a little Sharpie.
a sharp? I've heard of
Yes.
people going with and they're like,
Yeah.
excuse me, but
Yes, and the robbery did not go well. The police were called. Some
Oh,
guy
my
jumped on
gosh.
me. It was all bad. What's weird though is I remember when I'm being held down and like I can hear the police sirens. I remember like breathing this like sigh of relief, right? Because I had been like trying to get the guts to kill myself like for months before that. It was like I felt so trapped and so lost and so alone
And
and
not trying not to get
shackled.
sick
Oh
is
God.
just
It is meth was hard to come off of, but there is nothing like that sickness that comes from fentanyl withdrawal and that you have to get well. And yeah, I remember like feeling relieved, like my first thought other than, oh shit. Because I mean,
Right.
really, like, oh shit, the sirens, every criminal, every addict is the, oh shit.
I'm so grateful.
But
I've never.
oh, yeah, also don't recommend. Along with armed robbery.
Yeah, those two
Also,
together. Even
Backhanded in the face with a gun. So I'm pretty cool on carrying. And my sponsor now says,
yeah, I also had some pretty bad gun experiences,
Yeah.
which is why I didn't want to use a real one, which I thought was very nice.
Hey,
But
yeah.
I think
Bonus
it's very
points
nice.
to
Look I think it was very nice of you too. You
Yeah,
weren't really
thank
trying
you.
to endanger someone. You just wanted the drugs.
yeah, and I am not like a super badass either. Like I did a lot of theater like when I was a kid and in high school and
well,
so
seeing
I was
you
like very
today.
theatrical, right? It was like, okay, and scene, right? Run in and be a badass. And
As you
just
are
like in the
today, I have
movies.
a hard time imagining you with
No,
a gun at pharmacy.
Oh my God. Oh man. So
Oh, wow.
I was in California, they didn't have mandatory minimums, which is where I was living. And so they had the recommendation. I think it was like 7 years in prison I was looking at. But all I had other than that charge were like a misdemeanor possession or a felony possession, but nothing big. What they didn't know is I had all these charges that hadn't hit yet, right? Like all these things that were happening that I had done. So after I got arrested, all these and sentenced to all these other charges from other counties started coming in and investigations and check forgeries from payroll checks I'd robbed from inside a restaurant. And so I got hit with a lot of felonies when I did finally get caught.
Printed out. I needed a background check. And Peter printed out my rap sheet a week ago. And just seeing it later was like, it was harsh.
Yeah.
What you will do high.
And that's what I told the judge too. I was like, listen, like I wrote him a letter and I just said, hey, like I know that maybe you don't believe me or you don't know me, but this is who I was supposed to be. Like I was that unfortunate person with all the potential, right? Like
Right.
the straight A and nice and all the things. And he was a really great guy, actually. He was really kind. The judge who sentenced me was really kind. And he gave me 1 year. So I had to do a year. And then with a 7-year suspended sentence, and I mean, he gave me a very stern, if you even breathe wrong when you get out,
Right.
like you're going to prison.
That's incentive, though.
Yeah,
7 years suspended.
yeah.
I got a time cut.
And he gave me a pep talk too, though, and it was just like it was a very meaningful experience. And also, I look back now and realize I'm white, I'm a female. I'm sure that may have played into the
A little
sentencing.
privilege,
Yeah,
So I can
like,
tell you that it was
yeah.
the opposite for me. That
really.
because I had gone to college, they were like, you should know better.
Woo.
Exactly.
Hey.
And the amount of time I got from my crime was the most amount of time at the time. Other people had gotten a lot less time. And yeah, but I should have known better. But in hindsight, like I say now, thank God,
Yeah.
the timeout was needed. And I went to boot camp. and got a time cut. So I was blessed in it.
And he did also sentence me to residential treatment. So I had to do a
Nice.
year, which it was weird. It was like it was a year and then a certain percentage of that time could be residential. So I could have only done 6 months, but no residential treatment center would take me. So I could have done like 6 months of my sentence
And then
in a
6
residential.
I got it. Yeah.
Nobody would take me because of the armed robbery, because it's a violent offense. And so I like
A
writing
gun
letters
crime.
in jail. Hey, I'm really nice. Give me a chance. And finally, this one post-prison place, and East Palo Alto on Needle Street, the freaking treatment center. I
Street.
shit you not. It was on Needle Street.
That sounds like it on purpose.
Oh, yeah. So I hear about people doing these like bougie treatment centers. They're riding horses on the beach. And I was like, au contraire, mon frere. That was not my treatment experience. But
Wow.
no, but I thank God, right? Thank God for the treatment center that I went to. Thank God for my counselors there. Thank God that I was ready to make those changes. And thank God I had my daughter, and then I had another baby, my son, who was just a baby when I got sentenced. And I really wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to get home to them. And so, yeah, like I did it. Like when they said, go to meetings and get a sponsor, I was like, how many meetings? Okay, like I'm there, work the steps. I'm doing that, right? Call your sponsor, go to these groups. I went to the groups. I really just dove in because I knew that my life was completely, horrendously unmanageable, terrifying, lonely, horrible.
Same.
Yeah.
I was scared. I tell this often, but I went to meetings for 4 years, 3 months, and 22 days without missing any. And it's the same group that I go to today. That's how I met our friend. And I went there to get off parole because I had to get the slip signed. And I was just so scared of going back and everything that I just stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the first time.
Yeah, thank God for that. Thank God that you, me, each of us has that moment. And I don't know where that comes from, where you're just
Yeah,
finally
and I don't
ready.
think I had
Yeah.
that moment until I was off parole. Everything I did before then, I did because I was supposed to, and I wanted to get off parole. But at the 6 months, because it only took 6 months when I was in the program to get off parole, like at that time, I was just like, I'm going to stay. I'm scared to leave to this day. Yeah, I don't care how many years it is.
It's funny how fear got us to where we were in our addiction for a lot of people. And
Absolutely.
fear keeps me sober too, because I have that fear. And doing this podcast, and I think for people who, I do a lot of work on the podcast, not in lieu of, but I don't go to as many meetings as others because I get so much, I'm in AA all the time, all week long.
You get to go to a speaker meeting every week.
And what happens when I chair, and also just from these stories, is there'll be moments, and we've had some guests where they really hit us. Like I had dreams the next night of being back in it and being in these situations because it brought up those memories and feelings. And I wake up and I'm like, and sometimes they're so vivid, you feel like, did I drink last night? You just whatever it is,
Sometimes
and then
I get a stomach ache.
it takes a moment, and so that's a fear of I don't ever want to go back there, and I don't know when that turned, because I had no fear of doing what I did for many years.
I'm grateful. I fear other things in life, but I don't feel, I don't fear easing anymore. Like that I have faith on. Somehow it changed. I don't know which decade, but it took a long time. It did. It took a long time, but I do feel safe from that. And I'm not saying that I don't have to work on it. I never have it all together. Trust me. I have to work on it all the time. For me, things calm my brain. I like call it my relax and unwind time. And this person might annoy me or whatever, but it's the principles, not the personalities. And for me, I always hear one thing from someone, and I'll take that one thing for the night. And I'll be like, okay, I can go with that. And everybody's recovery is different. It might not be meetings. It might be variety. It might be, there's a lot of different ways out there to recover.
Thank God. I
Thank
agree.
God, because we
1000%.
need 300 more beds to detox. We need so much more treatment centers, but the word recovery, there's still a stigmatism behind it. I don't care what anyone says. There's still a stigmatism when you see a gun charge. I had a job that I had gotten who looked at my record, my 30-year-old record, and said they didn't want me. And I was so...
I have a question with when you went through, so you had a path from prison to the treatment center. Was there a path beyond that? Or was it like, okay, you get through here and then go for it, you're done?
Well, so the treatment was in California, and my mom had my oldest daughter, Cheyenne, up here in Portland. So my mom was living here in Portland. I'd never even been to Portland. She had moved up here, met this guy, got married. And so she had my daughter. My ex-husband, who is the father of my son, had my son. And he was quite a bit further up north too. And so I had a choice, right? I was like, do I go back to my hometown where obviously things weren't good? Or my mom was like, why don't you come up here to Portland? And I didn't think that they were going to let me move up there. My parole, probation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this is also a part of privilege, right? Like my mom is educated. My mom has resources. My mom is an excellent writer. My mom is well spoken. She's good at advocating, and
Jealous
she.
again.
I
got a 60-day violation for moving to Portland to Beaverton because I had never gotten in trouble in Beaverton, right? And I wouldn't fuck off where my mom lived because I was more scared of my mom than the police. And I literally got a 60-day violation without permission.
The system, that's why I love politics, because anytime I hear about something in the system that doesn't work like that, right? I'm like, okay, we need to change that system.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
agreed.
But I was fortunate. So I was able to move to Portland. And then here's what I love too, is when I moved to Portland, it was a fresh start. And so all the other times I'd done like the geographical moves,
Yeah.
I was doing a geographical move with a syringe taped to the underside of my bra because the cops won't. That was another idea I had, is that they can't search you if it's under your shirt. That's wrong too. If anybody's listening to all of the things I thought
Don't
through
take
my
that
life,
advice.
also don't do that. Yes, no armed robbery, no fentanyl,
gosh.
don't
And don't argue with the male police that
No.
you want a female police officer to search you because you just get it in other ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that was my geographicals before, was
Right.
like not set up for success. This time, like within 24 hours of moving, I was looking up NA meetings, right? I was
love
like
it.
on TriMet. It was pouring rain. I didn't know the
love
bus
it.
system. I got lost. I didn't know that there was like, I don't know. Okay, I was a little confused. So I think I tried to get to some meeting, didn't realize that downtown isn't the east side and vice versa.
Yeah,
But
there's a
I,
river that
like,
kind of screws it all up, right?
Yeah,
In the middle.
but man, I didn't give up though. Like I kept at it. I found an amazing meeting where I was a secretary for years and can't say because
Same. No.
yeah, and I can't name names because it's breaking their anonymity.
Right.
But there are 4, 5, maybe more people in that home group who are all people like getting out of prison, riding TriMet, has nothing, DHS cases, kids in strollers. And all of them are like me, like directors, executive directors. Like we have this whole group that was in that meeting, and we're
that's
all like
awesome.
super successful today. We just started.
What's funny about that? I went to an NA meeting, right? Because I haven't been a drinker. And there was someone high in the meeting. They were high as fuck. And I was like, really? And it was a younger crowd. And I just didn't feel comfortable. And so I went to AA the next day. And yeah, and I was the only person from prison. And I didn't mention IV drug usage until probably 20 years sober. And it was a bunch of older guys. And it was so cool because they were getting.
Yeah. Meetings are evolving daily, it seems. But old school was whatever your addiction was, you were an alcoholic. That's all you were. You never talked about anything else.
Yeah.
And it was,
that really hurt me in my journey because I needed to be fully open and honest with myself, who I am, and everything that had gone on with me. And if I was at a club where I first got sober, I didn't feel like I could be fully open and honest and be who I was. And then
Yeah. And it's, as an addict, you're constantly talked about masks, right? So you're always wearing a mask. You're always trying to hide what you're doing. And then you get into recovery, and then there's these such rigid rules back in the day, like you said, of what you say and what meetings and where you go to. And that's why today,
I didn't want to
people-
get kicked out.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. But when I hear people say, you can't say clean or you have to stay sober or what. I'm like, maybe people will hate me for this, but how about go fuck yourself? Let people say whatever they want. They're clean, they're so
Peter
whatever.
and I go to a go fuck yourself meeting.
Yeah.
Meeting that was just a regular meeting is so open now, thank God, because trans people feel comfortable at our meeting.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter what you use or do, whether it's alcohol or whatever. Peter came to that meeting and found a home.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most openest meetings I've ever been to. And like I've grown, the meeting has grown.
Yeah. I've said it before on other shows, but if that's keeping you from staying in recovery, not being comfortable in the group that you're at.
I tell my clients this all the time, especially the ones who love alcohol. I'm like, man, if you showed up at a bar and you're 21 and you're cute and you're gay and you walk into a biker bar with a bunch of crusty 60-year-old bikers, are you just going to be like, I guess I'll just never go to a bar again?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to go.
You go to the one that you fit
find
in.
another
Yeah,
one.
no,
And so
exactly.
meetings are the same way. You
Yeah.
got to just shop around a little.
And
the
there's
other
so many
thing-
places now.
The other thing that I had a hard time with is I thought fun was over because fun was getting drunk and partying it
Yeah.
up, and it's not over. And I love the saying, we aren't a glum lot, because we're not a glum lot. We have so much fun, and I've had probably more fun being sober now than I ever thought I did when I was.
That's because he hangs out with me.
I know.
Just
I'm
kidding.
like, actually, I'm having fun. You guys are fun. I'm like, what meeting is this? What
Meeting's the same way. It's great. We play bingo in the park. We do a lot of good stuff. We go out to lunch on Fridays, and
When you came back to Portland, and did you live with your mom?
No, I started off living, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name. It was this really crappy motel on Interstate in North Portland. And this is before North Portland. Yeah, it was on the Max tracks there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking
like
about.
Pretty couple blocks from Fred Meyer's. And yeah, there was like a crack pipe under the bed the first night we checked in. I was like, let's throw this away. Luckily, crack. Never been much of a fan, so thank God. I'm not addicted
thank
to
goodness.
everything, but pretty close. Not that. Hey, no crack.
wasn't my.
But yeah, and I was in this motel, but my mom helped me out. Like she helped me co-sign for an apartment. Like once again, like I had this hand up that other people don't have. And I think it's so important to share that because I think there's also this idea of you're successful. How come this person can't be? And it's this person didn't have a mom to advocate for them to come out of state.
And they call it recovery capital.
Yeah.
And you had some good recovery
Yes.
capital. Clean and sober mom, somebody would help you. Some people do not have recovery capital. They don't have a safe place to go to. They don't have family that's sober. That's sometimes they're a product of their environment. And I was not that.
I think some of the hardest cases for me over the years were working with these clients who were in the foster care system their whole life and aged out and not only had all the abuse and all the things, but like literally don't have a family, right? Like at 18 years old, not having one human being who's healthy or loves you or can call or do these things. And it breaks my heart. So I really do. I like to give myself credit because I did a lot of the hard work. And I think it's really important to highlight the things that I was privileged to have that other people don't have. And so I think that's where it's really important that we as a society step up and build those supports.
And that's why I had asked about your path from prison to recovery and your journey from that point, because that's one of the things I hear a lot is that's one of the things that's lacking is people will, and it,
Housing
not to
alone.
get too political, but 110 and how that passed. And it was like, oh, we're going to have there was no mental health care services to pursue afterwards. Like you go to jail, okay, there's some treatment centers now. Okay, so there's part of your path, but then what's after that? And there's only a few facilities out there like Fora Health that have this more of a complete path that you get housing, then you get a job, and then you get reintegrated into society.
Nice.
And for like we were just saying, a lot of people don't have the recovery capital that you did, and so we have to, if we're going to make a difference in our community, and if we're going to take Oregon from being 50th in addiction,
48th now, we're moving up. Yeah,
okay,
two whole points. Woo, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
But if we're going to flip that around, that's,
Yeah.
I think, where we need to focus, which I want you to finish your story, but I think it's a nice segue into what you do today. I want to hear about your...
Yes. So, what I do today is, I am the co-founder and executive director of Cielo Treatment Center, who I run that with my business partner, Martin Camacho Bonilla. I'm saying his name out loud so you guys can pressure him into doing this.
Yay, I love it. Or you can pressure.
And he's just a fantastic guy, and he cares deeply about helping folks get sober, and he does a ton of work on himself, and is just such a great person to build a treatment center with. And I feel really lucky that we were able to do that. And then I'm also the co-founder and executive director at West Coast Sober Housing, that I run with my husband, Isaac Salazar, saying his name too, in case you guys get hard up again and need somebody, but who is just one of the best human beings on the face of the planet. Like, he's just such a great dude, and I love him.
So how did you get from getting up here, you're getting established, you're living in a hotel, whatever it is called.
Motel.
That's one of my favorite songs. Sugar Hill Candy Gang. Look.
I mentioned I have ADHD too. My brain, I just will jump in and start singing something in my head.
That's one of the best original rap songs, not to get distracted, but it is.
A tangent.
Yes.
I love tangents.
Look at him and Izzy went off about
Xanadu. Yes,
Xanadu.
I listened to Izzy.
We had a Xanadu moment.
But no, but
I cut out quite a bit of it because it was really, we were getting really deep.
25 minutes they're talking about roller skating and Olivia Newton-John. So we can have our
I love it.
But how did you get in connection with, obviously, but how did you go down that path?
When I was in residential treatment in California, actually my last real job right before I went in there, because I did sometimes get real jobs too. I was bartending. And so I literally, when they were like, oh, what are you going to do when you get out? I'm like, oh, I was so good at bartending. I used to pull in like $700-800 a night and tips on the weekends. And thank God I had a counselor that was like, hey, so that's a really bad idea. And here's why. And she's like, Solara, you're so smart. You're so capable. You are super empathetic. You're helpful to all your peers. She said, I think you should be being a counselor and going to college. And that stuck with me. And so when I was living in the motel, I needed a job. I worked as a barista at Starbucks at the PSU campus. So I'm serving coffee to all these people that are in college, and all the people working there are in college. And so, like, instantly I was just like, oh yeah, like,
it's the best part of downtown.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says.
Yes, it was like that little, it was like the park blocks that like turned up
Smith
top
Center,
there.
Lincoln Hall.
It was really cool that I got to be around all these people in college. And so I just signed up, and I got my degree in alcohol and drug counseling. And I worked as a counselor for a couple years, and I loved it. And then I stayed in school, and I got my bachelor's in human development, which is a weird mix of like mental health and childhood development and all kinds of stuff.
I think it all helps, though.
Yeah, it was great. And then as I was in that degree, I kept getting promotions, right? Like, I had so many people that kept telling me, like, hey, you have these great leadership qualities. You're really good at thinking in things of terms of systems. You're really good at this stuff. And I went from being a counselor to a supervisor to a director, and moved up the ladder at these different agencies, and got my master's in management and organizational leadership. So kind of a business track. But what I discovered is, as much as I loved counseling and working with people, and I miss it sometimes. Like, I used to love doing group therapy sessions, and I miss having those like really deep one-on-one connections with clients, and like knowing when you see somebody's success that those plans that you made with them and those one-on-ones and those groups is what did it. But as much as I love that, I really building these programs wish I could have gone to.
Love that.
That is,
Like recognizing, oh my gosh, people aren't successful because they don't have food when they're getting out of residential. So at our program, everybody gets a gift card for basic needs. And it doesn't matter who you are or what. It's like until you get your food stamps, until you get whatever, like we get that handled. We get a bus pass taken care of. We have mentors that take people and get them all these different things. And that's just one example. But it was like,
You got to have the basic
oh
needs
man,
to
yeah.
get. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah. And then other things like working in these programs where we never did anything fun and it was just these groups all day long. Be like, man, I wish I could take clients kayaking or we could go hiking or we could do this cool group. And now we do that.
You do that.
Right? We
That's
just do
awesome.
it. And so I've just discovered this part of myself that's so in love with the creative process around creating systems that help and support people. And so
Thank God.
like, yeah. And even though I don't have that like one-on-one.
When I went through treatment, it wasn't like that.
No.
In which time? No, it was the last time that set in. I went rafting. We had a garage
Yes.
sale at the church. I got to do a lot of things that way. Never go rafting again, but yeah, never. Two of the guys fell off the boat, and I had to say,
Well, I think what wasn't addressed or perhaps forgotten is that anybody in recovery is a person. They're people, and they still have the same desires and likes and loves of life. And you could say from a government perspective, we're going to give them housing, and here's your room, and here's your bed with the plastic mattress. That's like going back to prison in a lot of ways. But if you can do like what they do, different organizations have scholarships that they call them, where they'll give them bedding and even just a vase with a flower, stuff that can make you feel more, wow, this is my home. Like it's personal. It's not just a blank, empty box. That's part of what should be part of our recovery.
100%. And it's those little things that people just have.
And
Right?
to
The
do
little things that
to do
count.
kayaking
Yeah.
and go hiking and things like that. Oh my gosh, how awesome is that? You know?
I know. So that's how I met Izzy as GTD, Go the Distance. They come to our treatment center twice a week now because it was that. I had to add an extra day because there's so many people that were
That is so
We're
cool.
just so into it. And for any listeners out there that don't know what Go the Distance is, it's these amazing people that come in and they take the clients running. And you don't have to be like a professional runner. There's folks that power walk. There's people that have never
walk when I go the distance,
See?
right?
Yeah.
I have some On shoes. Shout out to
I
On.
love On.
Yeah,
I love
and they just gave him a whole bunch of shoes yesterday.
Shout out to On big time. They are so comfortable too.
Yeah, and
I'm not a runner, but I feel like I could in my On shoes.
Shout out to Lauren. I love Lauren from On as well. He originally just went to take our friend that was at DePaul running. He was working at Portland City Grill. And those of you who haven't listened to it, we have Izzy's whole podcast, plus we have GTD podcast that we did. We had all the guys in our house.
Oh,
Yeah.
no
In
way.
Peter's house,
this
yeah.
Oh, I listened to Izzy's,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
no, we
didn't
had
listen to
Connor,
the GTD.
We had Connor, Mentor, Mike, Greg, T.
I think it's organizations like that or services or even just individuals, as he started, bringing that life back into people's lives. I think that's so important. Being able to connect with whatever your passion is and know that you are a valued person and you have value to give back to society. And there's a stigmatism which we're hoping to destroy. And maybe the anonymity, that's a hard word for me. Maybe
Everybody.
that can be tossed away at some point because we're all, we've had different life experiences. And look at us how, given the opportunity, how far we can go and how much we can change and what an impact. So you see who's making the impact out there and see that percent of them are lived experience in recovery.
I
Yes.
think it's a heart. Like you have a heart in recovery. We do the podcast. You have a heart in recovery, and like you said, the organization and building it, Izzy's passion for running, and then you take one life and change it, and they change 2 lives and
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we do recover. I think together, and it's true. What we cannot do alone, we can do together.
And I was thinking about how great the Go the Distance guys are, right? They always show up. They're just like positive and happy. I should say guys and gals. Give the gals a shout out
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
They're so positive. They're so happy. And I'm just thinking about my own staff too, right? Like at the treatment center, sober housing, I would not be able to be sitting here right now doing this podcast if I didn't have this just amazing team of people
Right.
that are our house managers, the counselors, administrative staff, directors at the treatment center, who all carry that same like warm, inviting, supportive. Because, yeah, treatment doesn't have to be dull, right? It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be cold. It shouldn't
Neither
be
does
like
recovery.
no,
Yeah, no,
like it shouldn't be like you
exactly.
go to a hospital, right? This is exciting.
I
You're
first
turning
went-
your life around.
When I first went into treatment, it was textbook.
Ugh,
It was like classes
yeah.
and textbook. And here's your homework. You know, that's
No
it wasn't-
offense, and I knew
Yeah.
the bitch that ran my group, right? I knew she didn't use. Does that make sense? You could tell because she was telling me some stuff, and I was like, bullshit. And so she didn't have the authentic prison experience, the authentic IV drug usage. She didn't have it. And you could tell. And I see so many more people that are authentic. Not saying there's anything wrong with the book, people, but I notice now there's just so much more lived experience. And someday we're going to have a great team because other than just me and you and Colette, because I see what's the really good play, like 4D. Tony's got a fabulous team.
He does.
Amanda
He
at True
does.
Colors, the team is amazing.
Yes.
Jared at Painted Horse Recovery has amazing team. I see that. And I think when you go through and grow in the program, like from mentor to program manager and whatnot, you gain these people because that's what I've seen. I don't know because we're not there yet, but I see these amazing teams, Izzy's team. And Izzy changed a lot of their lives by putting them on his team when he grew. And now they change people's lives. And then the alumni comes back. And I'm sure it's the same for you. 100%. And it's crazy. We've been seeing.
Tell me a little bit more about, for those who are interested, or maybe they're struggling or they're new to recovery, what do you offer with your?
That's such a good question. So our treatment center is Cielo Treatment Center, which is CIELO. And the best thing to do if you have a phone or access to one or a computer or library with a computer is just going to www.cielotreatmentcenter.com or Googling us and going on the website.
Are you on the recovery app as well?
Yes.
Cool.
Heck yeah, I am.
Shout out Mike Marshall.
Yeah, shout out Mike Marshall and your whole IT team. That was a heck of a
Dan.
big project.
We have a link to
Dan,
that
yep.
app on our site, and we'll also have links to your
Yes.
facilities on our site as well.
Fantastic.
Mike's podcast.
I saw on his Facebook, he did the little announcement. I was like, good for you, Mike. All right.
We did
paving the
Bo
way.
too, who's just
And this is a great thing, too, is that even though Portland's huge and the recovery community is huge, it's like a small town at the same time, right? It's like every name you're mentioning, I'm just filled with so much love, like talking about all these
Yeah.
different
well. That's how
people
yours
and-
was mentioned.
To
To be honest with you, it came up again and again. And I think the most sincerest thing that somebody said was that when all doors were closed to somebody, you helped them, that you're a miracle worker. That's truly what they said to me. And I was like, can we get her on the podcast? I was selfish, but in a good way.
humbled by that how far I've come and that I'm able to do that today. Yeah, it feels really good. And I feel
Great.
super proud of what we've built and our accomplishments. And I think we do offer outpatient treatment with supportive housing. And it's very holistic. It's a little different than your average treatment experience. And what I mean by that, first of all, it's co-occurring. So we have mental health treatment. We don't do primary gambling treatment, but we're moving towards being able to do that as well. We definitely, all our staff is trained and screened for gambling use disorders. And so along with the mental health piece, the co-occurring piece, really the most important thing is that we have this really fun, really engaging, really warm atmosphere. And that's something that we hear from people in the community partners. We hear it from clients just over and over. That's the thing that we offer is you walk in, it's warm, it's inviting. And it's not just the textbook stuff, right? Like we do the relapse prevention, we do the DBT, but then we have a lot of really new fun curriculums. We do this attachment disorder. Oh man, like childhood attachment. Our clients love it. So they love the relationship stuff, right? Like they love learning about, because that's where all that stuff comes from. Look at my story, right? It's where do people's stories
I
start.
hear it over.
Yeah, if you don't heal that piece. And so our clients really love like our new curriculum. So we try to like get the newest, the best, send our staff to get trained in these. We do LGBTQ affirmative therapy. Our staff are trained to do specific supportive therapies. There's an LGBTQ track.
I love that.
Our housing has an LGBTQ, and I'm shortening that. I know it's the IA2S plus, but oh my goodness, is that a mouthful?
It is, yeah.
So I'm shortening it, but it is all inclusive. We have a very trans affirming, home. So we do get a lot of, yeah.
That has vanity.
Yes.
Because in Portland, there's more people of that community trying to get help. The regular...
A higher percentage.
Yeah, a higher percentage. It's 11%, where the other percentage is lower. That's amazing. Shout out to trans housing, because there's not a lot of...
No, and I have to say, just like in life, we learn from painful experiences. It's no different being a director, okay? I'm not going to sit here and be like, everything's perfect and I'm perfect and our program's wonderful. A lot of the changes or the things that we have now is things that we did wrong and we learn, right? And so we had all these clients going through our program that were not successful, that were not completing, that were relapsing, that were LG plus. The trans clients were the least successful. And so you can either look at that and be like, I guess trans people just suck and they can't get sober. Or you can look in the mirror and say, we're doing something wrong in our program and we are not supporting this population in the right way. And so
kudos, because
man,
meeting, especially the nighttime meeting, I hear so many times, I'm in a sober house, but I don't feel comfortable because they are the trans person. And shout out to True Colors for trying to make them feel at home at their center, but it's not treatment, and it's not...
If you don't feel comfortable where you live, come on, that's like ground zero for me.
And then you're going to leave and go back to where you...
But you brought up True Colors, and that's the other cool piece that I love about where we're going as the recovery community and the treatment community and recovery services, is that we could have the best trans supportive housing, we could have the best affirming therapy. And if there's no recovery clubhouse, if there's no meetings, if there's no peer services for folks, they're also not going to be successful, right? And so what I love is that we live in this city with all these really unique, really cool, really amazing culturally specific programs, and we all work together. Like, that's huge.
That's
Like
awesome.
you have to work
That's
together.
what I think is amazing. I go to True Colors and I've been to the Glam Lot, and they're having a drag queen thing and a dance, and I went there because I wanted free ice cream. And that's the night I met Amanda. She spoke, and it was really good. I didn't know that there was people that went... I'm being honest with you. I didn't know that there was people that had been incarcerated that have graduated to executive directors and were helping people. That was the night it put a bug in my head that I wanted to change. And
being a member of the gay community myself, and when I was getting sober, prior to sobriety, it was clubs. bars.
Yeah.
That's where we hang out.
Yes.
That's how you meet people. That's that's the culture. It's part of our
Yes.
culture. And of course, clubs and bars and everything, beer, alcohol, for someone who's struggling, that's not a place you can be comfortable.
I
So to
love
have,
the fact that you
Yes.
even have the housing. Amazing job. Like you said, learning and growing. What an amazing job. That's really,
And we also do culturally informed treatment for Indigenous. And so we have a ton of culturally specific treatment, counselors that are white bison trained and certified, that are Indigenous or follow Indigenous traditions and knowledgeable about culture. We take our clients to sweat ceremony. We took a bunch of our clients camping at the Grand Ron powwow a couple weeks ago.
we
and
just saw them dance at Recover Out
Oh,
Loud.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. It was-
I hadn't even heard until we interviewed Jared. I hadn't heard or wasn't aware of the Wellbriety.
I wasn't either.
Oh, Wellbriety. If you get a chance, go to a Wellbriety meeting.
Yeah,
You don't
we need to.
have to be
We have to.
Indigenous, right? Show up, go to the Red Road to Recovery is amazing. Like the book is incredible. The community, the ideals, and I know nobody can see me, but I am very white. I am a redhead. Nobody will ever mistake me for, but yeah, being so welcomed by that community and so willing to share that culture.
Yeah.
And Jared's been a huge part of that. In fact, I wish I had my phone right here because I'd show you. So in my phone, his number says Jared the homie. Feel free to add the homie.
The homie.
Because he's
I
my
like it.
homie.
The
Yeah,
homie.
he's the homie.
I love it.
He was so powerful. Oh my gosh. That's another, if you haven't listened. Was,
He actually was moving. So was
Yeah.
Melissa.
So I was just gonna say, man, that's
love
a power
Melissa.
couple
Yeah.
because that's like,
Yeah.
man, there's a few of my favorite couple people out there, and Melissa's a badass, strong
Yeah.
She
woman,
is.
and
I
there's
love
nothing I
her.
love more than a
Me too.
badass, strong woman.
Me
So-
too. I don't get along with the fluffies sometimes. Like I like the realness.
Yeah.
But shout out to Peter because Peter does the artwork, right?
Oh.
On every episode.
oh, stop.
No,
Yeah.
but I think that so there's ones that I think are just exceptional. And we had never seen the artwork on the Painted Horse shirt. And Peter's Painted Horse Recovery on Jared's podcast was exceptional. Like it was, we got a lot of
Hey.
compliments on it that night. And Jared approved and Melissa approved that night because
yeah, not being so as familiar as I should be. But yeah, I did want to be insensitive. And growing up, how I was raised in my growing up, Indian and which Native American, those terms even were politically correct for today. So I want to make sure that I was being sensitive and not being insensitive. And
Yeah. Well, hey, but I love that. Like I do that all the time, right? All
Yeah.
the time because I am not an expert. Sometimes I think I am. That's actually a character defect in a lot of areas, right? Not just with one culture. I just think I know everything sometimes.
yeah.
But I call up Jared all the time. I'll be like, hey, so we're doing this thing and this cultural thing. And what do you think? Like, how is that? He goes, oh, no, bro. No, that's a hard no. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I
Note to
love it
self.
when he says,
So,
leave a little to back.
yeah. So I think it's great that you ask, right?
Yeah.
And that you want to be aware. And that's where I try to be. Is like I try to be like teachable and I try to ask and assume I can be in those.
The treatment center is really diverse. And that's how we've tried.
How many people do you have?
We're small and we intentionally keep it small because we do such intensive wraparound services. We have a doctor on staff, so we do the mental health, med management, Suboxone, Vivitrol, all of that. We have folks doing trauma therapy with their mental health counselor, individual counseling, crisis management. We have a whole group of peers that are taking people and getting them set up. Nobody completes without a complete self-sufficiency plan and their whole life really set up. And because we do such intensive case
I love
management
that.
and wraparound services, we have to keep it smaller, which sometimes makes me a little sad because we get just inundated with phone calls of people wanting to get in our program.
Right.
And I wish we could help more people than we currently do. But at the same time, if we did, right? And we made our groups
It wouldn't
bigger.
be
We did all
you.
that. It would get
Right.
watered down, and then folks wouldn't be getting that same
So
level of support.
how do you grow and accommodate? Because there, like we have a deficit of beds and services
Yeah.
right now. So how do we grow and address that? Do
Or
you
do
just
you want
create
to?
more centers? Do we just make the center bigger and more to handle more people?
Yes.
Or
yes.
is
And one little thing we did is we opened up an evening IOP program a couple weeks
Okay.
ago, right? And so
Okay,
now
yeah.
we have folks that, they're working. They couldn't come in during the day.
Do you know how
and-
helpful that is?
Oh, so it's already so popular. So many people are excited about
I
it.
chose to go through mental health. I was sober,
Yes.
but
Yeah. Yeah. So I think little things
I
like
love
that,
that.
just coming up with new programs, sure, new times,
housing.
housing.
and speaking to the housing, we talked a
Yeah.
lot about the center, but how is the housing and how's it integrated, or is it
So most of the folks that go to treatment at our treatment center are in the housing, which is West Coast sober housing, but they're separate. And we actually do have a couple folks that go to other sober housing facilities. And let me tell you, I feel so blessed because we have some amazing sober housing organizations in Portland
We do.
that I work very closely with. My husband works very closely with, because we have to make referrals back and forth all the time. And having those relationships is huge. But also have folks that go to other treatment centers in our housing. So we have
Okay.
people that go to
I love the
Quest.
working
We
together,
have-
yeah.
Yeah, we have people that go to Recovery Works Northwest, CODA, different other outpatient, other DUI programs, mental health programs, Cascadia. And so we have a really diverse mix. And then we have some people in our housing that aren't in treatment, right? Or some people that completed treatment, they've got a year sober, which is nice to have that mix.
yeah?
Because when you have some folks
Foundation,
that are
yeah.
stable, that could take the new people to meetings
Yeah.
and really support them, it is huge.
That's amazing.
Huge.
We have a member of ours, she runs a house, and she's trans, and she gives back.
Yeah, I'm so proud of her housing. And I mean, here's the thing. I do the bookkeeping for housing. I do the policies and procedures, safety checks, a bunch of little things.
The not fun stuff.
I help out here and there, but really the success of our housing goes to my husband, Isaac, who works 60, 70 hours a week, like tirelessly. And you guys, he is like the most happy, upbeat, kind-hearted,
I love it.
sometimes it kills me because I'm like, really, are you just not stressed all the time? Can you just be human?
Or he
and
likes
not
what he's
be-
doing.
Oh, I do get it, because when we came up with the idea of doing this show, that was part of it. It was like, this is a passion of mine. And I put in a lot of hours, more probably than I do for my clients.
Yeah.
But it's because it's a passion. So I have such a desire to do this. And so the hours fly by, and we've talked to other people who, same thing. They put in 7.
Yeah,
you know.
you have to really love this, right? And and that's
me.
something I can honestly say. For the most part, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, I'm excited to go to the office, right?
Yeah.
I love hanging out with our clients. We all eat lunch together. They're all like silly, and we have art therapy, and they'll paint me pictures, and I have this like file cabinet with all these pictures. Like our clients have painted kindergarten or something. They're like, look, teacher, I made this for you.
Yeah, but
I
on a bad
love
day,
it.
you
Yeah.
can go there, and it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, like I love what I do, and I feel blessed.
It shows.
And,
It
yeah.
definitely shows in your personality and in your demeanor. And I love the fact that you're communicating, and it's not siloed. It's very much communicating with other centers, because we're not in this alone. We're in it all together, and we share a common thing. And
Yes.
so it should bring us together, not divide us. And I think there was a time where there was a lot of silos. Everybody wanted to do good work, but they were all kind of siloed. And now with this integration, and I think that app that Mike Marshall and his teams put together is a fantastic start to getting everybody together into one space, so we can help each other.
That's how we get from 48 to 46.
Amen to that. Oh,
You made
my
me so happy
gosh.
saying we're not 50th. I just want you to know, like, okay.
Yeah.
because it's
good
been
news.
knowing you're the worst in addiction and the last in treatment. But I think people like in different opportunities that we see flourishing all over the place. It's crazy. And the partnerships, I think, are
Priceless. And I think that there's a real investment now that's happening at our government level that wasn't there before. From the top down, we're seeing an investment in sober housing, in treatment, in recovery services, peer services. And I know we have a long way to go and there's a huge
But there's
infrastructure to
progress.
build, but there's hope. And one more shout out. We got this amazing grant through Multnomah County when you're paying your taxes, and there's this homeless tax for services. Guess what funded our LGBTQ house that we're doing all that trans affirming care at, right? Like, thank you, Multnomah County, for being our partner
That's
and
awesome.
supporting
Wow.
that house. And we had the governor's 1530 bill and for housing, which some of that was allocated to sober housing. And so thank you for that, because that opened us a new women's house. And so thank God for that investment too in our community and the government. That's really, we're seeing a shift, right?
And that's the most awesome thing is I talk about it as a light at the end of the tunnel, but there's this sense of hope and optimism in the recovery community and from all levels. And that just gets me jazzed.
Yeah.
It really does. I appreciate you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today and being vulnerable to share your story. I think it'll definitely inspire many others out there who listen. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing with your center and helping the community.
from the non-technical person. No, Peter's the genius. But for me, spreading the message is, I know that's Peter's goal as well. For me, it's crazy. I didn't deal with the trauma until 25 years sober. And every story I hear has helped me heal a little bit more, when that I'm not unique, because I always thought I was. And there's just really great people out there that are trying to help. And every time when I meet one of them, I swear to God, my life gets just a little bit better. So I'm today.
I'm really grateful that you asked me, and man, I love what you guys are doing. Thank you. for
Someday
doing
we'll
this
get funding too.
podcast. Yeah, you hear that? State of Oregon, Multnomah
Yeah.
County, Real Recovery Podcast
There
right
you
here.
go.
Yeah, just think about it. No, we got to get the message out, right? We got to get the message out.
We're
Like,
trying to get out so many
we-
different ones, which I think kudos to us, the people that you're working with, we've had on the.
So thanks again. And this is Peter with the Real Recovery Podcast.
This
Julie.
is Julie.
Signing off.
for listening.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks to each and every one of you for lending us your ears and hearts. Your engagement is what fuels our passion and keeps this podcast thriving.
We cherish the moments we share here and hope they resonate with you, whether you're on a daily commute, at the gym, or just taking a moment for yourself.
Make sure to head over to our website at realrecoverypodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest insights and uplifting stories from our community delivered straight to your inbox.
Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player too, so you can keep up with every new episode. It's your support that keeps our conversation alive and meaningful.
And if our stories have touched you, consider using the donate button on our site. Your contributions, no matter the size, are deeply appreciated. They help us continue our mission of sharing hope and healing.
Join us beyond the podcast and follow our journey on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. All the links are on our site, so you can stay connected and be a part of the Real Recovery community every day.
Your likes, shares, and comments not only spread the message of recovery, but also remind us that we're all in this together.
So, until we meet again, remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and we'll be here to accompany you every step of the way to recovery, real recovery.
Thanks for listening.